Welcome to the HuntLeague Podcast, where we share hunting stories from the field that help pave the way for others to follow.
I ain't blaming nobody, but I just know from life lessons you never leave elk to find elk.
This is your host, Jared Newman. Let's get started. Welcome back to the HuntLeague Podcast. This is Josh Dishman. He is our fourth finalist for the 2025 Outdoorsman of the Year. If you are just catching up and this is your first of the interviews, I would encourage you go back and listen to Josiah, Monzi, and Cody Parator as they share their stories. Love to hear your guys' feedback and input on who you guys think should be the 2025 Outdoorsman of the Year, which is the highest honor that we can give inside the HuntLeague community. We have some incredible stories coming to you today from none other than Josh Dishman. Many of you guys got to meet Josh earlier in the year as we recorded some podcasts on our Champions League hunt. So Josh, you are a former champion. You are a Western Hunt champion inside the HuntLeague app already. You have been a finalist for the Outdoorsman of the Year. The big question is this going to be your year? So Josh, go ahead and give us your introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and we're going to dive into your 2025 season.
Well, my name's Joshua Dishman. I've ran Chasing Tails since I think 2018. I love the great outdoors. I'm in it all the time. I live in a little town, basically 5 minutes out my front door. I could be on a gravel road. And that's the life I choose. I don't like the concrete jungle. The mountains is where, it's my church. That's where I belong. Like I told my wife many times, I think I could have been a mountain man in my first life. We're 5 minutes from the North Umpqua River, so, if I ain't hunting, I'm fishing. If I ain't fishing, I'm hunting. That's what I enjoy doing, and I enjoy taking a lot of people on our hunts and fishing and just enjoying God's country.
You said you've been running Chasing Tails for the last several years. Tell us what Chasing Tails is and what you've created there.
So Chasing Tails Outdoors is basically blacktail hunting. As you look around the world, there's not a lot of blacktail stuff. I got a big push from Trent from Born and Raised Outdoors. He says, you really should make something of that. He says, because you don't see much blacktail. So I really dove deep into that where, blacktail was my passion and still is my passion. And I like to, show everybody all the blacktails that we see or we hunt. I like to take people along with me and just kind of show them what I see in the great outdoors.
There are many people that say you may be one of the best blacktail hunters in the world right now. Like that you've had that level of success, not just filling your own freezer, but helping take other people. And that's been something you've been passionate about for years. When you came out to Colorado to do the hunt, you were a little bit nervous that your streak may be broken. So tell me what this streak is that you've built and what you're trying to protect here.
So, I've been fortunate enough to, harvest a blacktail ever since I was 9 years old. And the Colorado hunt wound up coming right into the middle of blacktail seasons. I hadn't punched a tag yet. I'd taken several other people on hunts. I did a veteran hunt that he was successful. I took a buddy of mine that's never shot anything over a fork and horn. He took his biggest buck he's ever shot, which he's got it in a taxidermist getting mounted. I took a youth out and it ended up right at daylight. So I took a lot of people out before, I tried to fill my tag, but it had me nervous because I only had a few days left when I came back.
You've gotten a blacktail every year since you were 9 years old?
37 years worth or something like that.
It's a pretty dang impressive streak. When we were sitting at elk camp this year, I could tell you were itching. All right, I want to get an elk and I want to focus on that, but I also have just a few days left of the blacktail season back in Oregon. You knew that your opportunities there were going to be limited. Take us right to that, and then we'll dive into the rest of the year. So what happened when you got back from Colorado? How many days did you have left?
I think we got back, I don't even remember what day it was. I only had like 2 days left. Immediately the next morning, I got up and we went out. And I think it was that morning, around 9 o'clock, I had harvested a really nice 3-point. I was super ecstatic because Colorado, if I got an elk, I wasn't too worried about the blacktail because, we eat a lot of game meat and my top priority is to make sure the freezer's full. So if I'd have got an elk in Colorado, other than my streak, it wasn't really a big deal. But when the elk didn't come, I knew the deer had to. So
something had to happen.
I was going to give it my all the last 2 days.
And when we say the elk didn't come, that's not entirely your fault. And we all know that. And if somebody would listen to the podcast of maybe our fourth or fifth day of hunting, they would know that when you saw the elk, I said, "Hey, Josh, let's go this way." When you were like, "But the bulls are right this way." So there may be other factors at play that kept you from getting an elk this year.
No,
Mainly, I don't know what the main factor is, but I could maybe point a finger at it if I really thought about it.
I ain't blaming nobody, but I just know from life lessons you never leave elk to find elk.
Man, we sure did that on this one. All right, so tell me about this veterans hunt. What are these veteran hunts that you do? Why do you do it? How does it work? Explain that.
So the veteran hunts, I give away a 5-day veteran hunt. I'm not a guide. I don't get paid. It's just something that I'm really passionate about, giving back to our veterans or our first responders, because if it wasn't for a lot of those people, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. So to me, that is a top priority in one of my, blacktail hunts, is to make sure that I at least try to put a smile on a veteran's face for a few days, to take their mind off of whatever they're thinking about. If I can take them out in the woods, for 5 days, and they have the time of their life, I know I did my job. Whether they're successful or not, there's no other hunt that compares to that veteran hunt. I've taken a lot of people, but when you get a veteran out there, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's one of the coolest moments that I get to live in for 5 days.
I love your passion for it. It's something that I know I hear you say and speak on. So let's talk about your veteran hunt this year in 2025. Who was the veteran? How did he get selected? What was your hunt experience like with him? Did you have to outfit him? Was he a hunter previously? Like, answer just a bunch of those kind of big questions for us.
Gary was our veteran winner this year. He was a Marine Corps veteran. Him and his wife have gotten into raising their own chickens and living the clean life that they want to provide clean meat for their kids, So
Yeah.
they raise their own chickens, do all that stuff. Well, he's always wanted to hunt, but never had the opportunity. So I heard about Gary, and I knew instantly that was the guy that I wanted to choose to take on this hunt. He was super awesome guy. It was a little nerve-wracking at times because the first couple of days, I think we had 13 bucks get away from us.
Any shots fired?
No, not a lot of shots fired. I don't think he was prepared on how quick things might happen.
Yeah.
And as soon as that daylight came, things were happening quick. I mean, I'd be like, there's a buck, there's another buck. And a lot of times they were running, they didn't really give him the chance, but he's never had the opportunity to see that. And like I say, every second of it, he was having the time of his life. And then it finally come to the moment, like a couple of days later, I told him, because in Oregon, spikes are legal. To me, a spike's not legal. I grew up where it used to be fork and horn or better. And I told him, I said, it has to have a fork on it to ride in my truck. And he kind of looks at Steve Baker from Work Sharp. He's like, is he serious? He's like, he's serious. We pulled up to this landing, and, I kind of glassed on one side of the landing, and Steve Baker and Gary were on the other side. We glassed for about 45 minutes. So I walk over to their side, and I just pull up the binos, and I was like, well, there's 2 bucks standing down there. And they're like, what? They're like, we've been looking at this forever. I said, well, there's 2 bucks standing down there. And instantly, Gary gets out his spotting scope that he wound up getting through Vortex, because Vortex usually sends out a really cool package. So thank you, Vortex.
Yeah, they're the best.
He looks at me and he's like, hey, I think it has a fork on one side. So I get my spotting scope out and I look, and sure enough, it's a spike by fork. And he's like, can I shoot that one? And I said, well, I told you it just had to have a fork. So he's like, okay, I'm going to shoot it. So he lays down with his rifle, and it was 546 yards away. So it was
That's a pretty
little
big poke. I mean, I know he's been in the military, so he's been comfortable with rifles, but that's still a big poke for a first hunt, taking a shot at an animal.
So he shoots, and I don't even know where he hit. The deer just kind of stands there. He doesn't even look around it, so I don't even think the bullet even come close. Then he shoots again. Then he shoots again. And I'm like, Gary, I said, I don't know where you're even hitting. I said, do you want me to grab the Bagara 6.5 PRC and dial it for you, and you shoot it with that? Yeah, let's do that. So I range it, and I check everything and dial the knob, and he shoots like a foot high. So now I'm second guessing myself, so I look at everything. No, that's where it needs to be. I said, Gary, you need to take a deep breath and just slowly squeeze that trigger. Okay. So he takes a deep breath and he shoots, and it just drops that buck. And the best part of it is it wasn't about the horn size to him. It was about providing that good clean meat to his wife and kids. And we made it down to that deer, and he was more tickled over that deer than I've ever seen any person in my life. He wanted to do the whole thing himself. He wanted to pack it out himself. It was awesome.
Well, he couldn't have had a better mentor, that's for sure. So old Gary got pretty lucky getting to be a part of the Chasing Tails Outdoors Veterans Hunt for this year. But what a cool story. And when we talk about that Bergara rifle, that is the Bergara rifle that you won in the Western Hunt League. And that thing is a tack driver. I guarantee it's not going to miss by a foot if you get a good trigger squeeze.
That thing has taken many bucks. I'm so comfortable with that rifle that I have no hesitation to dial on that rifle and hand it to anybody else because it's that accurate. I absolutely love that rifle.
Over the past year and a half, I have shot literally dozens of different rifles, working with several of the companies we work with, from Stag Arms, from Seekins, from Bergara, Savage, Remington, Tikkas, all sorts of rifles. And of everything I've shot, I really think my favorite shooting experience has been with that Bergara Crest rifle. I think that carbon fiber stock, the way it handles and manages recoil, the trigger on it, the action on it, everything about that rifle is so silky smooth. On top of it feeling perfect, that thing shoots lights out. I mean, that's a 1/4 inch, a half MOA gun all day long, and that's even with factory loads. It does a phenomenal job.
Factory loads, fresh out of the box. I shot 5-round group at 100 yards that I could cover with a dime. So
that's unreal. I know we've hit on some of these things, but we haven't even asked you, tell me about your 2025, Josh. What made this year special? Nobody gets to this point in the Outdoorsman of the Year unless they've got a couple highlights, a story, something that differentiates this year from previous years. Tell us a little bit about some of the highlights of your 2025 season, and then we'll dive into some of those kind of specific stories.
Well, like I say, I know a lot of my highlights are my youth and veteran hunt. That's a lot of what I do. I really enjoy putting other people first. I've been very fortunate enough in my lifetime to harvest many, many bucks and elk, bear, whatever. But to me, the biggest highlights are my youth and veteran hunt. To me, it can't be beat. Especially, like I say, when you're out there with somebody that's never done it before, or, that's maybe doesn't have that mentor in their family, and you get to try to, kind of hand them some of the stuff that you've learned over the years. And that's the thing about hunting is, you're always learning, even after all the years that I've done it. You continue to learn, and there's always an obstacle thrown in our way, especially with conservation and stuff, But like I always say, the youth of today are our conservationists of tomorrow. So to me, the biggest thing is getting our kids outdoors and raising them right. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, helping them learn to value what we do in the outdoors, value hunting, that will cause them to protect it for future generations.
Yeah. And, another highlight was the amount of work that I did for myself this year was probably one of the biggest years that I've ever put into rucking, trying to prepare for a hunt. This year, I absolutely hammered myself into the ground for 3 months straight. And
maybe longer, Josh.
And even though I did all that work, it still did not prepare me for 11,600 feet.
You were like Rocky Balboa training for your first match. You were climbing stairs. You were filling buckets with concrete and carrying buckets around a track. The stuff that you were doing was so next level. The amount of training that you put in this year to prep for hunting. How many pounds did you lose? I know you carried a lot of pounds, but you also lost a lot of pounds.
I think I lost 30-something pounds. A lot of that was through sweat and grind. There was several days where I did 80-pound rucks. Most of the time, it was 65 to 70-pound rucks, 10 miles. And also running, I think there's 100 stairs on this flight of stairs that we were running. And we were doing 40 sets. One, up, down, that was one. I didn't count the down and up as, one each. It was up and down, that's one. So I don't know how many flights of stairs I actually did. I don't know.
Thousands. It was incredible. It was super inspiring to watch just the preparation that you put into the season. I know sometimes our stories can be about the success that happens in the field, but when you are putting in this kind of work, you're bettering yourself. And what was really driving you there was your passion for the hunt. I mean, and you
Yeah.
spent countless hours, days, literally blood, sweat, and tears like you went for it this year. And it was really inspiring for me to watch, even from a distance. I hope it can inspire some of the other people listening to the stories. I think even when you were finished with the Champions League hunt, like one of your things that you said was, I should have trained harder.
Yeah. I knew when we went into the Colorado hunt, it was going to be tough. You know, a lot of those ravines back there, they were no joke. And to me, you know, the reason why I worked so hard was not only for me, but to me, you owe it to that animal to be able to get yourself there, recover that animal, and make sure everything comes out, you know, make sure I come out. You put in the work for yourself that you also put in the work for that animal to be able to harvest it and bring it out to where it doesn't spoil. You know, you got to get there in a timely manner. So you got to be in the best shape possible. So
that was an incredible effort, an absolute mountain of effort that you put in. If you had to recap your year, people are listening now, they know, all right, you live in Oregon and you hunted Oregon. You came to Colorado. Did you hunt any other states this year?
no, just Colorado.
Colorado and Oregon. What species did you have the opportunity to chase this year?
We chased turkey, we chased bear, we chased deer, elk here, and then also elk in Colorado.
It's a pretty big year. Do you do any like waterfowl, bird hunting, small game, anything like that, predator hunting outside of bear?
We do a little bit of predator hunting. You know, I did actually set up a call a few times this year and tried calling in a few coyotes.
Dive into some of these stories. I want to hear some of the mentor hunts, your veteran hunt, but you also had kind of a youth hunt.
One of the young men, as his name's Walker, and he decided, you know, I'd spotted a couple bucks, and he was with his grandpa, and I had messaged him that I had a couple bucks spotted. Being 14 years old, you know, when I was 14 years old, you just started shooting. You didn't even care. You know, you just sprayed and prayed, you know. And we got him set up, and he decided not to shoot him, which I thought was pretty cool for a young man his age. You know, he says, I want to try for a bigger buck. They were decent 3 points, you know, they weren't nothing spectacular or anything. Me being his age, I'd
no chance.
No questions asked. I'd have just started shooting. But he decided, you know, he wanted to try for a bigger buck, which he wasn't successful. But I give it to him that he wanted to try for something bigger. You know,
yeah.
Not too many.
That's also a learning experience. So I had an opportunity. I chose to pass. One of the guys, one of the finalists for our Sweet September League. It was his first year ever to hunt elk, and he had a bull elk that was broke off at like 10 yards. And this is still early in his hunt. And he's like, I'm going to pass. And then at the end of the season, he doesn't end up filling a tag. And he's like, what was I doing? I've never even harvested an elk. I've never even hunted an elk. And I let that pass. But so he has to live with that, which is also a big part of what you learn from it. Am I still okay having chosen to pass on that animal in hopes of getting another one? Because as soon as you pull the trigger, your hunt is oftentimes over.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have any more hunting days. So maybe he's like, man, I'm glad because I got to have those extra hunting days in the field looking and chasing, you know, a deer that I was hoping to find.
And on top of it, he got, you know, spend more time with his grandpa because his grandpa just moved from Alaska down here. So he was getting to hang out with his grandpa the rest of the season because his grandpa was taking him out. So to me, I told him flat out, I said, I'm extremely proud of you. Not too many kids your age would have passed him up. Then the other one, that hunt was pretty much over as soon as we got in the woods. I mean, you can't ask for a quicker hunt. We literally hit gravel and we drove probably not even a mile, and it was a beautiful 3-point buck. I mean, probably 18, 19 inches wide.
Oh, wow.
It was meant to be her deer. I mean, it stood there the whole time, let her get out and shoot it. I mean, it was just like something out of a book. And like I say, it was over before it even started. It was awesome. I mean, she was just on cloud nine. And to me, that's what it's all about. The reaction you get out of these kids, you just can't beat it.
You know, that deer was set apart that day. It's like, all right, God created that deer with that girl in mind. The stars were aligned. That deer was just standing there ready and created such an incredible experience for both you guys. That's really a ton of fun.
You know, it's like I've always explained to my son, you know, he's missed a few deer and everything. He's like, Dad, he says, I just don't understand why I missed. And I said, son, it just wasn't meant to be. You know, later on, you know, he winds up killing something twice that size. And I said, see, that's why you missed. I mean, it just wasn't meant to be for you to take that deer.
Sometimes we have to just resign that in our own hearts. Otherwise, we can beat ourselves up and wrestle with it. Now, dive into what would be the most exciting hunt for you this year? What was the hunt that really got you lit up the most?
For me personally, it was definitely the Colorado hunt. But for other people, it's a toss-up between the kids and the veteran. I mean, those are absolutely what I enjoy doing. But like I say, the Colorado hunt for me personally, because, I don't get to get out of state very much. So when I do, it is pretty exciting. And then also get to do it with a couple brothers. So, I mean, to me, that was a highlight of the year for me, was getting out of state and doing something that I don't get to do. Even though it wasn't successful, I mean, to me, it was a success just getting there and, learning how you guys hunt. And I mean, just some of the gnarliest country I've ever hunted in. I mean, to me, that was successful.
Well, our judges are not going to go back and listen to all the multiple days of podcasts that recorded from that hunt. So go ahead and give a little bit of context as to what that Colorado hunt was, how it came together, and what your experience was like on that hunt. So I'm going to kind of keep my mouth shut because I can fill in gaps because I was present there. But I want you to just share this because this is going to be maybe the first time the judges will have ever heard anything about this hunt.
Well, like I say, it all started from, I think, Brandon and Jared talking back and forth about a hunt. And they decided that, when it come down to it, that two of them probably wouldn't be able to get an elk out of where they were going. And they decided to ask a couple other people if they'd be interested in coming along. So I was fortunate enough to get the invite, and that's when all the work started. Many months of preparing for it. And when we got there, it was awesome. I mean, Jared had sent us to a spot. I think it kind of got us really amped up for what we were about to do because there was elk everywhere. I mean, right at daylight, Jared tells us to go to this spot and look. So we did. And sure enough, there's, I don't know, 100 and something head of elk, multiple bulls. So we're like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. We decided to meet up with Jared and them later, and we set up camp and everything, and we hiked to a different spot back in the backcountry where we were going to dive off in. And the moment we reached that ridge and I looked off in there, I knew this was going to be brutal. And, we wound up spotting multiple bulls in there, and that's when we chose to dive off into no man's land. And, it was an experience that I'll never forget. I mean, I've never once put on crampons to go elk hunting, and this is what we were doing. Unfortunately, we got down in there and, alpacas and stuff come by us and kind of spooked all the elk out. So we decided to hike out of there. But, all in all, the experience that I got there was unbeatable. We got big mountains in Oregon, and, I'm all about steep and deep, but that was beyond steep and deep.
Yeah.
When
you're hiking downhill for 3.5 hours, like just one way, and it's like, we're still going downhill 3.5 hours later. It's crazy.
All I could think about is the old Cameron Haynes saying, I should have worked harder. That kept going through my head a lot because the amount of work that I did just didn't feel enough in that country that I felt so small in.
Yeah, well, I definitely didn't take it easy on you in the terrain that I chose. I mean, that's what drove the preparation. I told you guys, hey, we're going to an area that I wouldn't dare take other people. This is not for rookies. This isn't for a youth hunt. But you guys were all previous champions inside the app. And I was like, look, you guys are the best hunters I know. And I'm going to take you into one of the worst spots I've ever seen because I know every year I see elk down here and nobody wants to do the work to go get them.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the hunt. I put in the amount of work to know that I was actually going to use it. I wasn't going to go back there and ride around the truck all day or, you know what I mean? So to me, that was a big thing,
You've already said it. You didn't fill your tag. But
no.
What are some of the things that you would identify as success, even on a trip that you were technically unsuccessful on?
Well, the biggest thing was, the connection with you and Wally and Brandon. We went in as friends and came out as brothers. I mean, to me, that's successful in itself. I mean, anytime you can go through the grind and the sweat and the tears of, the pain and everything else and come out on the better end of a hunt like that, to me, that's success.
And we had to fight for that a little bit. There could have been opportunities where that splintered us, but I feel like the way that trip ended, it was really, really special. We fought through some adversity, and sometimes it's those guys that you jump in the foxhole with that you come out and say, hey, for the rest of our life, we know that there's this connection and this bond that we created during this. We worked through some stuff, but because we worked through and put in the work, we came out as, better on the end of it.
Yeah.
And being unsuccessful, meaning like we didn't pull the trigger on an elk, didn't mean we didn't have incredible elk experiences, encounters. We saw one of the biggest elk that Wally or I, that we've ever seen on Colorado public land. I mean, a mid 300s bull that was pretty dadgum fun to look at.
I mean, no matter which way you look at it, every time I close my eyes, I can still picture that bull just standing there looking at us. Unfortunately, he got away, but it's a memory that I'll have for the rest of my life. I wish it would have been successful on that thing. Like I said before, it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, that was incredible. Did you have any bear hunting success this year? I know the last couple of years you have been chasing a very specific bear. I mean, Tank Williams. I don't know what you've named him, but you've sent me photos of him several times. I'm like, good night. You have a fat Oregon bear picked out. So tell me a little bit about your bear hunting in 2025.
I did have a bear tag this year, and in mind it was that one bear that I was going to chase, no matter if I was unsuccessful or not. That was the bear that I was going to wait for. And the spot that he hangs out in is, really cliffy, just gnarly bluffs. And I hiked in there, I don't even know how many times. I see multiple bears in there. Just one absolute beautiful kind of blondish red one. And I probably had her 200 yards. I could have shot every bear in there, but I chose not to. Tank Williams never showed up. To me, I don't know if it's because I'm at that age now to where I don't consider it trophy hunting. If I get one specific animal in mind, I will chase that one animal. I mean, that's just the way I've gotten lately. And unfortunately, I didn't shoot a bear, but I stuck it out the whole spring, basically 2 months of spring bear season for that one bear. And I think I wound up seeing like 15 or 20 bears and never pulled the trigger on one of them.
And that strawberry blonde bear, you sent me a couple photos. I mean, that was a gorgeous bear. I'm like, I don't know how you held off on not shooting that, especially knowing that you saw it more than once. I would have kicked myself for passing. I'd be like, you know what? Now I've got 2 bears on my list, because that was a really unique bear, especially for your area.
I had a little thought in mind that I was hoping was going to work out in my favor. I was betting on that she was a sow, and that when she come into cycle, that she was going to draw Tank Williams there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, she must have not come into cycle, or Tank Williams is no longer
never
there.
Smelled her. He wasn't into the strawberry blonde stuff.
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you were using that bear biology, those natural instincts and urges against him. I can understand that. I could track.
I figured if there was a chance for him to show up after getting shot at the year before, it was going to be her, bringing him in there. So I put all my eggs in one basket, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But to me, that's hunting. I mean, you can't kill them all.
No, you still had a great season there. Knowing that you put in several days in bear hunting, you think about the Colorado trip, you think about your veterans trip, you think about the youth hunts, you think, you start stacking all these things up. How many days do you think you spent in the field in 2025?
I definitely didn't do as much as I did the years prior. On average, I would spend roughly 200 plus days in the woods, because I would run trail cameras, from basically April to December. I was in the woods 24/7, even in the summertime, running trail cameras, putting out salt, just you name it. This year, I didn't put out any trail cameras or anything, but I definitely say I was still out there 100 plus days, from bear season to deer season to, elk season and everything.
Which is wild. Like, most people think about this, like, I want people to understand the level of dedication. And I would say that the Colorado trip probably took out some of those days that you normally would have been spending in the woods, because you were investing yourself in another way, but all with the same kind of goal in mind. It was all hunt related, but it was just less time in the woods because you were prepping for a different state altogether. We do the Colorado hunt. We finish. You have 2 days left of your Oregon bear hunt in order to keep your 37-year blacktail streak alive. You race home. Tell me, you and Brandon had done this Colorado hunt together. It was exhausting. Like when we finished that Colorado hunt, the amount of work, the amount of effort, I can't believe that you had the energy to do the 18-hour drive or whatever it is back home and then be able to turn around and get in a truck and even go look for another animal, other than the fact that you were still hungry for success. But tell me about that hunt and what transpired there when you were chasing your blacktail.
I will say when that alarm went off at 5 a.m., it was a little rough, but I wasn't going to let nothing slow me down. Most of the time, even on my deathbed, got a severe cold or something, I'll get up and go hunting. You can't be successful from the couch.
No.
Like I say, we got up at 5 a.m. We took off and started seeing deer right off the bat. It was a nice kind of semi-rainy morning and everything. It was kind of like a pre-rut. If there was going to be a chance that we were going to see a decent buck, it was going to be this last weekend because, they were starting to pre-rut, starting to chase does a little bit. And we'd seen, I think, 3 or 4 other bucks, but, they were small, and I would rather go without filling my tag than just shoot something small. So we kept carrying on, and we come around the corner, and we look down this ravine and everything, and my cousin's like, "Well, let's just head back the other direction." And we come around the corner, looked up on the hillside, and we seen these 2 does running about, I don't know, probably 200 yards away. And sure enough, right behind them was a buck just on their tail, just head to the ground. As soon as I seen him with my naked eye, I knew he was the one. So I got out and offhand with the 6.5 PRC, let her eat, and down he went. The funny thing
Offhand
is
at what distance?
200 yards.
It's a good offhand shot.
I told my wife, joking around because we just come back from Colorado. I said, I'm going to run up there to that deer. And I mean, it was a pretty steep thing. I just took off running and I felt so good. I don't know what it is about some of those, I don't know if it was 11,600 feet, but my lungs felt amazing. I could just run up anything. So I just ran up all the way to the deer. And my cousin, he comes up, he's like, so there was another group of people up there. They had 2 little girls that had never seen a deer before. They wanted to know if it was okay if there were 2 little girls. They were probably, I don't know, 10 years old, 10, 12 years old.
Yeah.
And they come hiking up, and they actually helped drag the deer down to the road and everything. So they were excited because they've never seen that before.
That's pretty funny that they would get their hands dirty. You don't think of that with like a 10-year-old girl just like even wanting to touch it, like gross.
Yeah, well, they did say that at first, and we were trying to explain to them, it wasn't going to hurt them or anything. And pretty soon they're like, "Well, can I help?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." So one of them would grab the horns, and then both of them had the horns, and they were trying to, they were only tugging it about 3 or 4 inches, and they're like, "Oh, this is heavy," and it was just fun.
I love it. And that would be, so let's see. This is November when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right after Colorado,
Yeah.
I think that season ended November 2nd or 3rd or something. So you're back home. This is early November, so we are kind of heading straight into the peak of the rut. And then, but your season didn't end. I mean, that's November. Your season didn't end there. So take me to the end of the year and put an end cap on a pretty amazing year.
I had a muzzleloader elk tag left, and I've been very fortunate the past 3 years that I've drew this same tag with a muzzleloader for 3 years in a row. And the first year I wound up taking a 4-point bull, and then the second year I took a spike. The chances of me going 3 for 3 I thought were pretty slim, but I was going to give her one heck of a try. So me and Brandon met up that morning. We decided to go out, and we spotted 6 cows right off the bat, and we didn't see any horns or anything with them. So me and Brandon decided to hike in around to where they were. We got around to where they were. We glassed up in the timber. We could see the 6 cows up there feeding around and everything. And Brandon looks at me, and he's like, "So what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, is there a way to get above them?" And he's like, "Yeah." He says, "We can go up here and then hike in on top of them." I said, "Well, at least that way we'll know. And if there ain't no bulls in there, we'll just go on and try to find something else." So we hike in on top of them, and I drop down in, and the first thing I see is just a yellow spot through the trees. And I throw up the binos, and sure enough, it's a bull bedded behind a tree. Brandon ranges it at like 100, I don't remember what it was, like 130 or 140 yards or something like that. And I told Brandon, I said, I'm going to try to get closer. And I snuck into about, 70 yards. And I got a rest off of a tree. But this whole time, I could only see that elk's butt and part of his nose and his horn sticking out from the other side of the tree. And it wasn't 2 seconds later, this cow started barking. I mean, she was barking like you wouldn't believe. So I'm still locked on this bull because if he stands up and turns broadside, I'm gonna shoot him. And about that time, there was elk from every direction. They all come to that one bull behind that tree, and there was probably at least 40 head of elk. And I'm like looking at all of them. There's multiple bulls in here, and I can't shoot any of them because they're all just intertwined with each other. And about that time, they spin around and they take off. And I just look at Brandon, and we just take off. And we're racing for the ridge. And we crested the ridge, and on a trail right below us, probably 30 yards, they were as fast as could be, just choo, 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 choo. And about 50 yards down the hill was a creek bottom, and it comes straight up the other side. Well, I seen one of the bulls run in front of me, and I knew it was headed for that creek. So I just locked the hammer back, and I just held for it, waiting for it to come up that creek bottom. And as soon as he came up the creek bottom, I had just from its head to its tail, and I was going to shoot him in the neck. As soon as I touched off, that bull just hit the dirt. And 30 plus head of elk are just running this elk over. I mean, it's just total chaos. The funny thing is, Brandon looks at me and he's like, "You sure it's a bull?" And I'm like, well, now I'm second guessing myself. I'm like, I'm pretty sure. So I throw out the binos, it's the 4-point bull, It couldn't have worked out any better. The past 3 years, the spike I chased for over a mile before I finally shot him. And this one was an absolute foot race, And after it was all said and done, this is where the Colorado trip paid off. I don't know if it really paid off because I paid for it for like 3 days afterwards, but I don't know if many people realize the size of a Roosevelt elk. Their bodies are absolutely humongous.
Yeah.
So me and Brandon get it all taken care of, and he's like, "Do you think it's possible for us to one trip this thing?" And I look at him and I look at the elk, and I'm just like, I don't know. I said, that's going to be a lot of weight. So we decided to try it, and we had probably roughly 3/4 of a mile up the hill, kind of around and then down and round to the road. So it wasn't going to be easy. So we got it all taken care of, got it in the bags, and got it in our packs. And I went to pick my pack up, and it was absolutely the heaviest pack I've ever seen. I had both hindquarters, I had a heart, and I think a back strap or something in there. Brandon had the rest of the head, and it was literally 3-4 feet at a time. I didn't think I was going to make it. I thought I was just going to drop. Well, Brandon, he'd go up and he'd sit down. He's like, "Oh, just sit down and take a break." I'm like, "Brandon, if I sit down, I'm not getting back up." So I'm like leaning against trees, trying to just take any of the pain away, Finally, we get back to the truck, and it was just, honestly, I didn't think we were going to one trip it.
No.
I think
that's still crazy. Do you regret one tripping it? Was that foolish? Because, that's a couple 100 pounds each. Like, that's not 75. That's not 90 pounds. You're talking like this is a 200-pound plus load. That's crazy.
Yeah, usually on a Roosevelt bull, usually the hindquarters are about anywhere from 80 to 90 pounds, somewhere in there, 75 or something to 90 pounds, so you got double that. At the time, it was worth the try, but like I say, after that, my back was out for 3 days, so then it was stupid. We shouldn't have done it, but it was worth the shot to prove that we could actually do it.
Was that special getting to do that with Brandon after you guys coming home from the Colorado trip?
Absolutely. I know Brandon, he really wanted me to get an elk over there in Colorado after, he had, a few attempts and everything. But, it just, like I say, it just wasn't meant for me to get an elk in Colorado, and it was meant for me to get an elk in Oregon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was special, especially getting to do it with Brandon. We've become pretty close friends and everything.
Yeah.
We're basically family.
There's some level of family, but it's not direct.
Yeah. So, it was fun.
All right. Well, As we kind of come to a close, is there anything related to conservation, mentorship, any other stories that I'm missing that you kind of want to touch on, just so that it gives the judges an opportunity to kind of evaluate one more thing?
Well, like I say, I'm also a sitting member, committee member on the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. So, I do also do that in our spare time. I'm just an all around, I don't even know what to say. That's just what
Outdoorsman.
I do. I'm in the woods.
Like when we talk about outdoorsman of the year, like every year you're an outdoorsman in the woods. You're doing it 365 every year, year over year, demonstrating and proving that that's the lifestyle that you choose to kind of live. It's really special getting to watch you do that.
No matter what comes out in the end of the outdoorsman of the year, I really enjoy this opportunity. I really enjoy the brotherhood and everything of Hunt League. It's brought us all together, no matter which way we look at it. I do spend a lot of time on Facebook and, Instagram, and the amount of crap I get for even posting a shooting video is unreal. And like I say, that's what I love about Hunt League is, we all share the same passions. And like you say, nobody on here is to give you crap. We're here to help each other. And that's the way the hunting community needs to be, because, the way they're trying to pass laws and everything, especially in Oregon, hunting may be a thing of the past if we don't stick together.
Yeah, it's a big deal. All right, so after 30 plus years of pretty hardcore hunting, are you still learning things? What lessons did you learn this year that you can take with you that would be new? I mean, because you've been doing this for so long, it's hard to understand or even fathom, like, what else could you learn? But I think what you've demonstrated all along is that every year you're still continuing to push yourself to get better and learn. So what's one lesson that you learned this year from the 2025 season?
Well, it's just like our Colorado hunt, like you and Wally, the way I hunt and the way you guys hunt, is two different styles. And to me, is there's always somebody out there to learn from, whether it be, somebody like you guys in another state. The way I hunt here in Oregon may not work that way in Colorado, or vice versa. If you were to come here, maybe your ways of hunting there wouldn't work in Oregon. So to me, there's always ways to learn, and there's always something to learn from somebody.
Absolutely. Well, I had an absolute blast getting to hunt with you. What's really been fun for me is now, as we're in this a couple years, 3 of the 4 finalists this year that are advancing, I've now had the opportunity to at least like spend a day or two with on a hunt. Getting to hunt with you is an absolute, one of the highlights of my year. And then, having hunted with Cody Parator a couple years ago, and then I went to Josiah Gavin's farm several years ago. We did a squirrel hunt. We tried to see if we could get a coyote in, all those things. So I've gotten 3 of the 4 where I've actually gotten an opportunity to hunt with you, which is so special. Thinking about this Hunt League community outside of the Hunt League app, I never would have known any of you. And it's really special when you start seeing guys showing up year over year, putting in the work, how that bonds and brings us together and creates these opportunities for people to hunt and share together. I've got this stupid golf net behind me right now for a little chipping net, only in preparation for the Ryder Cup coming up in Oregon, your home state, where we're going to get to shoot together again. Monzi's going to be there, so I'll get to actually hunt and hang out with Monzi. So that'll make it all 4 for 4 with you guys. But, on that Ryder Cup weekend, we're doing a shooting match, but we're also doing a morning golf experience on that Sunday, which tell these judges about your golf game before we wrap this up. What should people expect at the Ryder Cup from Josh Dishman's golf game?
I think everybody should bring a helmet.
Run and hide.
Absolutely. Because I don't golf much. I do a lot of shooting and hunting. That's my expertise. But when it comes to golfing, no, if there's any hole or pond or anything, I'm guaranteed to hit it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for the laughs and all the stuff that happens over that weekend coming up in May. All right. Well, Josh, thanks for joining. Thanks for recording. I'm super excited to head into the finals. So there's 4 of you guys that have done these podcasts. We've got your applications. We're going to send all that stuff to our judges panel. They're going to select 2 of the 4 to advance into the 2025 finals. So that will be happening over the next couple of weeks. So hang tight. Thanks for sharing your story. good luck as you head into this home stretch.
I appreciate it, Jared.